Welcome to the most collaborative episode of Fitness and Thinking. Yeah, this is a best of. The format was inspired by Kay. Thank you for that suggestion. It's been such a treat to go back through the last 49 weeks and to reflect on time spent with guests and with ideas and themes that a lot of the time I just wasn't au fait with until those conversations. I obviously researched for them, but then had my eyes open on so many of them. What I've tried to do with this format is to link themes together, but then also just to have a little bit of fun with it. There was no way that I could get, I think we got 44 people in the first 50 episodes, all of their ideas, all of the people crammed in. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to spend time with ideas. I wanted to spend time with the people espousing them, and hopefully you have motivation to go through the back catalogue as you do, to like, comment, subscribe and stick around for the next 50 and the next 50 after that. I won't get ahead of myself. I am just back from a cover spin class, feeling good for it, feeling good for the PT that I did earlier as well, and the rest of the day has just been sitting with all of that which has come before. Feeling lucky, you're a huge part of that. And yeah, to all of my guests, to all of the people that we've referenced, to the people who've suggested episode ideas, guest ideas, formats, to future guests already booked in, yous a class, and I wouldn't be here without yous. Currently in an attic somewhere in the middle of England. It's going to get hot this week. SPF factor 50. Please look after yourselves, look after each other. I hope you have a lovely bank holiday weekend, and this in some way contributes to that. Fitness and Thinking is all about 6 pillars of fitness. You've got the physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual and financial states of being.
I think it's really nice to it's nice to connect with people that are kind of on a similar path. I think it's nice to have a discussion like this in this kind of city. I don't know how you're going to edit it, but people will see the type of city we're in.
Maddie, when do you know you're on the right path?
I think it's a feeling. So I don't think there's like a tick box, because I think it's different for everyone. There's a word banded around in the coaching industry, and I don't think it's super accessible to people, but I think it's so important. It's this word aligned.
Okay.
So when things start to feel aligned, I think that's when you know you're on the right path. And I suppose to almost contradict that, I don't think for each person there is a single right path. My company is called Journey On. So it's this idea that we have multiple paths, and different decisions we make take us on different paths. And that could be the right path for you in your 20s. And then that might change as you go into 30s, 40s, 50s. But I think the sense of being aligned can help you to recognize that you are in the space that you need to be at that time. And I think for those people who might not, what does aligned mean? That's a bit of a kind of broad word. I think what aligned means to me personally is you have this reason to get up in the morning. You're excited about life, you're motivated, and you're making a difference. I don't know if you know about this concept, ikigai. It's a Japanese concept.
Just come across it.
I feel like it's coming into the sphere of slightly more like mainstream at the moment.
Am I right in thinking there's a centre circle with other circles coming off it?
A bit like a Venn diagram. And it's this idea that these 4 areas meet, and I might butcher like the exact phrasing of it, but there's this idea that you're working within your passion, something that can give you enough resource so you can live, something where you're able to give back in the world. And I think the final one is something about fostering that, like there's an element of knowledge and challenge to it. And when you can meet those at this perfect point in the middle, that's this idea that you're aligned. And for me, that's where you know you're on the right path.
And is there something to be said about alignment not being the work you do? Or are you only aligned when your work matches your purpose? What's your take on this?
I love that idea. It's different for different people, because we all have different priorities. So some people might find alignment, and I'm not so bothered about the work that I do, as long as I can make enough money to live in the way that I want to live. Actually, alignment for me is doing the things I love, or maybe having a family. So I think it's about, you made a really good point. I like the word purpose. It's getting in touch with that purpose. So that doesn't have to be work. Think about it a little bit within a working context, because that's where I found my alignment, and that's then spread loads of branches into other areas of my life. But that isn't the same for everybody.
There's 7 blue zones in the world. You know, there's the patients that live the longest, right? And one of the keys is the diet that they eat. They maintain a healthy diet. And it's a pyramid on the Mediterranean diet. So on the Mediterranean diet, there's lots of grains, legumes, vegetables, and fruits. But as you get higher and higher in the pyramid, it is once a week or twice a week, chicken or fish. And then once a month is red meat. But on the side of the pyramid, there is wine. And wine is acceptable. You can have a glass or 2 even a day inside the Mediterranean diet, in which is considered healthy. We'll talk about alcohol because I have my own opinions as well. But the reality is that, you know, the Mediterranean diet, if someone says, wow, there's a lot of pastas and whole grains at the bottom, and I was taught that that causes me to become fat and obese, and I should stay away from pasta because the Atkins diet says you should stay away. And there's a discrepancy you can see between what we call healthy diets and low-fat diets. They're not always the same, you know what I mean? And they can be different. The Mediterranean diet is just one example. The DASH diet, the Persian diet, really focusing on portions, focusing on staying away from fried foods, inflammatory foods, focusing on foods that are anti-inflammatory, blueberries or kale, things that really can bring down the inflammation in the body, I think are the real key. And what's nice is the Mediterranean diet has been studied over and over again in multiple disciplines. It's been shown to help with cardiovascular disease, reduce cardiovascular disease. It's been shown in sexual dysfunction to help reduce and improve sexual dysfunction in men and women. It's been used for diabetic retinopathy to show improvements as well. It's used for dementia, Alzheimer's. In major journals, we're seeing that these types of diets can actually be very helpful.
I went to a lecture about a month ago in Sheffield on the gut microbiome and
Yes.
the brain, and the link there, the idea that the gut is the second brain, and what we eat impacts our heads, you know, our outlooks, our mindsets, our moods. And I wondered if you were to transport a load of people from England to the Mediterranean, but kept their diet, and then took people from the Mediterranean and put them in England, but kept their diet, if then there would be a secondary effect of something else. So when we look at these blue zones, I've got 5 of them here. So we've got Loma Linda in California,
Yeah.
we've got Costa Rica, we've got Sardinia, we've got Caria in Greece, and Okinawa, and then Singapore was a man-made blue zone.
Yes,
I think it's
that's
more
right.
recently. And I'm missing one. Do you know what the other one is?
I don't remember the last one, but you nailed. I mean, Loma Linda is the only one we have in the U.S. Did you say the one in Costa Rica, Nicoya?
Nicoya in Costa Rica.
Yeah. And then Sardinia, and then the one in Japan. I'm missing the last one, but I know that I thought there were 7. Yeah.
Maybe we'll find it
Yeah,
at some point
that's right.
outside of this.
Yes.
But what's happening in these places is that they're very close to the equator. And I've done an amount of traveling recently. I was in California in November last year, and the amount of light is very different compared to places like England. You know, there's a more consistent time frame of sunlight. So even though you might not have these long nights like we love in late spring and summer, you have consistent sunlight. So from 6 to 6 or 7 till 7. And I wonder if that has an impact on mood that we're not necessarily documenting. And vitamin D production, you know, people in Scotland are prescribed vitamin D because they get so little sunlight. And I think in England, we should have that as well. I take vitamin D as a supplement. It would be helpful if the NHS were able to give that to everyone because, you know, we need it. And then also with alcohol as a thing, we know it to be toxic, you know, and I've curbed my own alcohol consumption. I had a pint at the weekend and it was very nice. I had 2 half pints and that was enough for me. But, you know, I probably have a pint or 2 pints a month max because I know that alcohol as a whole, you know, it kills things. That's why we use it in hand sanitizer. And it's not necessarily something that is good for humans, even if it is normalized. But as you say, in the diet, in the Mediterranean diet, it is allowed. And so I'm thinking again, what is it about the Mediterranean diet? Is it just the food, which does have oils in, which does allow for sweets, which does allow for wine? I know Nonna in Sardinia because I learnt enough Italian to chat to her near San Teodoro. She used to love smoking. And she loves her fried pastries, but she's 89 and feeling good, you know? And what is it about that? Well, she has a purpose. She gets up every day to make pasta for the family, and Nono will bring the ingredients for the pasta. These two are very happy, I think, because they've got a purpose and they see their family every day. They see a wider community.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe that is a big part of the Mediterranean diet that maybe isn't talked about.
It's a huge part. So the Mediterranean diet is just one, but the purpose part, we always, even know with the Japanese as well, having a purpose in life can increase your longevity, period. Having a purpose in life can increase the longevity. But the other factors we didn't talk about were 20% genetic, 20% environmental, right? So those play a role. So there's an environmental role, what exposures we have to our environment. Genetics plays a role. But the majority, if you look at the pie, 50% is choices that we make. So whether you choose to smoke, whether you choose to eat unhealthy, not sleep. So those choices can make a big impact. But in terms of the choices, we're now narrowing it down to the food, right? And so you can see as we keep narrowing down, the pie gets a little bit smaller and smaller. But it's important impact to know that the food that these blue zones eat tend to be whole foods. I mean, if you look at the Japanese, I've been to Nagoya many times, and the concept is pura vida. Pura vida means a simply unprocessed, pure, clean food, right? And the portions are not large. When we get served and we go down there, they're small portions, right? And in America, we have this concept called supersize. I can go into any restaurant in my hometown, any restaurant in America, and take the meal I get, cut it into a third, and it's enough. Honestly, it's enough, you know? And so you just have to be careful on the portion size as well. But so I think you're right, Jack. It's multifactorial. We're talking about the diet, but we didn't talk about the genetics. We didn't talk about the environmental exposures. And there's other things called choices that can affect your longevity.
One of the quotes from your talk, which I really enjoyed, I'll paraphrase, but I think you'll know the one I mean, is from Huxley, that it's not the drug that causes the change, it occasions the change.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I've observed as a PT, as an amateur athlete, is the runner's high, and how you can work out with such intensity that you feel like you're on a different plane afterwards. The feelings of elation and relaxation. And you've discussed this as well, the ability to preside and reside in an altered state from the day to day, the default control network shut down maybe, and just feel bliss and feel like anything's possible. And that comes from your exertion. That comes from something that you've done, you've chosen to do. And so it does feel like the body is capable of this. It doesn't have to be something's put in. It's that, as Huxley says, it's the moment. It's having the feeling that you can change or be different could lead to that difference.
To like paraphrase Lady Gaga, we were born this way. So like, no, but
Excellent.
seriously, I think that's like, yeah, once again, the most fascinating aspect of all of this work was when I have two children myself. And with the first one, I had my first one during the pandemic, so I wasn't really exposed to many mom groups. But with the second one, pandemic was already past. So that was great because I got to meet so many people and to attend so many local community groups, like yoga groups and so on. And I was the last one to give birth in my group, basically. But I watched so many stories. I watched so many of my friends during that time, you know. It was crazy to me when I started hearing descriptions of what it was like to give birth. And full disclosure, why I didn't know this, I had a C-section with my first one. Terrible experience, don't recommend. With the second one, I heard a lot of stories of people actively describing what it was like for them. And I was kind of struck by how similar it was how participants in my study were describing their psychedelic experiences, especially in the cases where the mothers were at home. They weren't going through the medical established practice for having their children. They just decided to stay at home and have a more natural approach than the intervention-led system that's currently running. And I was struck by how similar their experiences were with the drug experiences that I was hearing for all of this many years, you know. And I did study a particular person who described this as being essentially just like taking mushrooms. That's why I wrote that paper, because when my friends started describing things from their births, I looked into the literature everywhere and there was no mention whatsoever about this process. And it got me thinking quite a lot, you know, and I am currently in the process of launching a very large scale study, trying to investigate this more systematically and see to what extent this generalizes. But I do have a very strong feeling that it is a universal human trait, and I don't think it's necessarily women only. You mentioned runner's high. I think that's another instance where it shows that our body is naturally able to produce certain shifts in our perception, our cognition, our experiential reality of that moment that is aching to an altered state. And doesn't have to be induced by a drug. It's just we have this system of entering those states that have different overlaps. It brings us back to what we were saying at the start, you know, what is a psychedelic?
There's loads of problems back in the UK with that sort of stuff, man. The wealth divide gets bigger, and that's one of the things I do concentrate on. As it's not so much how much money people have got. A lot of studies show it's like the divide between the richest and the poorest. The bigger that gets, the more unhappier people are. Is the not the amount they've got, but the amount that the top have got versus the bottom.
Which is really interesting in the context of the conversation that I had recently out here, that the general feeling is that people might vote in ways that they do because despite the fact that this gap is growing, the American dream is that one day you could be that. One day you could have that amount of wealth. It doesn't matter how unlikely it is, that could be you if you work hard enough. But on this side of the fence, maybe what happens is that we say, okay, we won't tax the super rich because obviously the super rich are needed for our country and we all aspire to be super rich. So obviously if you want to be super rich, when you get there, you don't want to be heavily taxed. So it doesn't make sense to tax the rich, does it? And then people might think, okay, no, it doesn't make sense. So we'll allow the super billionaires while also then not really realizing that what that means is that the people who aren't earning that amount of money will never earn that amount of money are taxed more than they should be, and maybe fairly. And an expression that I really like in the UK that I think maybe is going transatlantic and is perhaps as political as I will get for the time being is this notion of taxing wealth and not work.
Yeah. So that's a big thing at the moment with the latest budget. Because tomorrow is the budget, and as an advisor, all I hear is like, what do you think's going to happen? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I could tell you what I think's going to come, but if it doesn't gonna, and God forbid you say I think this, and then you go and do something based on that thought, and then you come back to say it didn't happen. I'm like, well, so I usually just now say, look, I'm not going to even speculate. Let's just wait until we know what's what, where is where. But the idea that we can taxation's a funny thing. I think people get very, very upset about tax. And on the one hand, you can say, well, the more tax you pay, the more you earn. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, I am earning this. And one of the problems in the UK is like around wealth is that actually once you get to hit certain wealth points, a lot of your money gets taken. A lot of your money gets taken on tax. And then people naturally will then go, well, hold on a minute, what is going on with the welfare state? Is it too big? Welfare states are expensive, and people start to look to more draconian ideas because people who have wealth have rightly so, probably worked very hard for it, and they have a sense of entitlement that this should be used in a certain way. But the idea that like political ideology, I don't go towards Labour, I don't go particularly towards Conservative, but I do go away from disruptive capitalism to more sort of stakeholder capitalism where you can earn a buck, but you've got to do it in the right way. And there's got to be a limit to what we do. But I find that very, very heartening because the amount of people when you show them, say, like ethical investments, not just environmentally ethical, but I don't want to invest in arms with like all the recent political strife that's going on across the world and geopolitical wars and things. I don't want to invest in arms. I don't want anything to do with it, even though it's an incredibly profitable business. And you can see it in the funds are like, you know what, thanks very much, but no. I won't invest in anything that has child labor. And actually, people, once they start to get educated on those things, they're like, actually, do you know what? I'm not comfortable in pursuing these things for wealth, even if it could grow. And that's a whole other sphere of like ethics and advice that people don't talk about. I mean, that's a separate area, I think, probably from coaching. But it's actually it isn't. I do one of these exercises where I say, "What's your money manifesto?" So we write this document about how you use debt, how you save, becoming your future self, and it's like your personal charter of how you handle money. And you sign it, and it can change. But one of them things is like, well, what would you do for money, and what wouldn't you do for money? And people have never thought about it, but actually, like, actually, I'm not too sure I am comfortable with skyrocketing investments that are on the ground being handled by children in third world countries, and actually, I'm not too sure I am comfortable with like investing in arms dealers and things like that. Actually, maybe not, but it's people aren't educated on these things.
Do we actually want equality?
Oh, for me, I think the big thing that often people don't understand is the difference between equity and equality. To achieve equality, everyone has to be from a level playing field, which is equity, right? And if, for example, females, as we're talking about that right now, if we're not on the same playing field before we even start to go off the bat of things, then of course it's never going to be equal and you're not going to get equality. No. In terms of maybe workplaces or whatever. I probably have a controversial opinion off the back of that in terms of anatomy, physiology, my makeup, my, bones, my anatomy, everything is completely different to a man's. Yeah. And that's never going to be the same. So in terms of equality that way, or what you potentially get from, I don't know, certain movements or whatever in the gym, linking back to fitness, it might not ever be the same or the same power, because we're built completely differently. And that's okay, because we're completely different. So I think there's lots of things that come off the back of that. But the one thing for me is people don't understand the difference between equality and equity, to make sure everyone can have equality at the end.
Yeah, I think that you will hear about spaces like the manosphere and the disaffected young males and the disaffected.
I've had that on my socials recently.
But they've been throughout time.
Yeah.
And without getting too political, what often would happen to the young men is that they would go off to fight. Mm-hmm. And that would be a use of this population that maybe was pent up or repressed in their own way. And they could go off and they could be victorious, they could be brave, they could die, they could serve a purpose. Speaking as a man, I know that when I feel low, when I feel depressed, when I felt suicidal, it's because I've not had a purpose. And this isn't like a pity party thing. I think it's that we don't want equality. We want people to be seen on a person by person basis. And there'll be some people who just feel absolutely great going into work every single day. And there'll be other people who think, my God, I am picking things up and putting them down again, and I'm putting other people's plates away, and somebody has spilt a bottle all over the gym floor. This sounds really specific, doesn't it? But like, I love my job now in a way that 18-year-old me would be devastated if he'd heard maybe. You know, like, I've found a sense of purpose.
That's what I was going to think. It comes back to that purpose.
Ped, what are we doing in Mexico City? Chris, Rob, why are we sat in a sauna in Sheffield City Centre? What's happening?
Yeah, good question. I often ask myself the same thing, to be honest.
What do people get wrong, should we say, generally about food? And you and I have already thought about the 6 pillars of fitness as I've laid them out, and probably we could get into each of them. Emotionality might be a part of it, and kind of attachment to food. You've already discussed disordered eating. So when we're thinking about somebody coming new to you and you're wanting to take them from A to B, how are you going to help structure their journey, their path?
I ask someone, what are your goals? You know, what are you looking to achieve by working with a dietitian? Most people know exactly what they're looking for. Some people are like, I have no idea, and I'm just looking to have a conversation. So then, we have to kind of establish I always like to have a goal of some kind that we're trying to accomplish. So most commonly are there things like, performance. I want to perform better, or I'm having a specific issue, a GI issue, or my energy's low, or I'm not sure what to eat. I just need to kind of start from the beginning. How do I learn how to eat? What their days look like? Are they working? Are they home? Like, I need to get a sense of where are they in their day-to-day? Where are they getting their food? Are they working from home? Do they have access to the kitchen? Are they on a college campus? Are they in a dorm? Like, what access do they have? Are their parents cooking for them? Like, wonderful. Like, that's so awesome when that happens. And I work with some individuals where they have chefs that cook all their meals, and they just want to have a prescription and tell them what to cook for me. Have we seen doctors? Are we seeing doctors for regular medical issues? Is there a GI issue like that you're seeing a doctor for? Like, I need to know that. That's really important. That's going to affect what kind of foods we're going to recommend. Is there mental health issues that are in play? Are they medically stable? Like, do we feel okay? Do we need to still get actively treated by that particular physician? And then medications. Are we taking any medications? What are those prescription medications? I need to know. Are they on certain things that influence their eating and their appetite? We need to know that. Any supplements, and why? A lot of people are taking many different supplements, and maybe they know why, and sometimes they don't. So I would be curious about that. And then any history of an eating disorder. I always ask athletes that in particular, or family members that have had either disordered eating or even on diets. Were they raised in a household where there was a lot of diet talk? Because that is going to have an effect on how they eat. And I think the initial assessment is really just getting someone to talk and getting to know them and know and understand what their relationship to food is like. And then what else do I ask about exercise? Any time off from training? I'd like to know why. And what their goals are for their exercise. Maybe it's like to get to the gym, 4 times a week for an hour, and just enjoy it and just finish a workout. It's been a very tough winter in New York. So maybe it's like just getting to the gym and getting out the door. That's an awesome goal. And like, that's maybe what they're doing. Or maybe it's to get their body ready because they're going to start training for the New York City Marathon. Maybe that starts in June. Training blocks typically start around June. So like, depending on what their goals are. And then I would estimate what their bodies need based on all that information and build out a plan. And I do like overviews. I don't do specific every day, here's exactly what you need to be eating, because then all of a sudden it becomes challenging.
Is it tough to be a female PT?
I'm a bigger bodied girl PT, and when I first started, there were a few people that questioned that I was able to be a PT, and that actually worked in my favour to a degree, because people who were bigger bodied and were wanting to feel a bit more confident were able to come in and go, well, you're like me, but you can still exercise and train and you're strong and you can do all these things and still be comfortable. I think a lot of women are sort of taught from a younger age being fit is being the tiniest version of themselves, when actually there's just so much more to it. And from working in a gym as well, I think you've got a lot more competition because it is such a male-dominated industry, which is one of the reasons why I love the gym that I work at, because we've got 2 female managers and quite a heavy female team now as well. I think a lot of women can find their niche quite quickly. For me, I went into it not really having too much of an idea of what my target audience was at the time. And I think I was open to everything because I was so fresh into the industry completely that I was sort of just willing to see what found me and who I connected with. But it definitely still felt challenging because there were such strong PTs on the gym floor when I started. I found a natural rhythm with that and the clients that I then picked up. Generally, there are a lot more PTs across the board, and I think it can be harder for people to find their feet. We've got a very strong male PT representation in our gym, so I think that's partly why any male PT that now comes into the club can find it quite challenging, because we've got a lot of bases covered with the guys that we already have. So they've then got to find a different niche, because although it is a competitive industry, we as a team always try and make sure that we're supportive of each other as well. But then, as you say, it's definitely something that we try and do with female PTs, because it can be a lot harder for them in the industry, that we give them more of an opportunity to grow. And I feel like they actually do quite well in our club as well.
I think the mix of people that are in there now, powerlifting, almost bodybuilding style, definitely fitness has come into it. And you've got your own specialism. You're smiling at it already. I know that fitness for you isn't just about what you do in the gym.
No.
And you've tried to, I think, successfully cross that gap. Go on, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, fitness is more about how you feel in your body, not necessarily just how it looks. I think a lot of people have this idea of, like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose loads of weight and get really strong or build loads of muscle. And a lot of the people that I work with, it's more a case of being confident in their body, and there's loads of ways to be able to achieve that. It's just getting a routine and working out to improve your mental health, medical problems you might be having, and just sort of feeling good about it rather than worrying about how you look at the end of it. And that tends to be sort of more my focus as a PT, which then there will come a point naturally with a lot of my clients where I've given them everything that I can. I know there are a lot of guys that I work with at the gym that have a lot more knowledge and a lot more capability than I do, but I provide a slightly different service to them. So that's kind of where I think my niche ended up being.
If you see people like yourself doing something, like, it can really take down a lot of these barriers that you think, or like reasons why you think you can't do something. So seeing another female DJ or a producer was really killing it. And maybe like what I found really helpful as well was listening to podcasts with DJs that I really look up to.
When we think about getting to space, I think for civilians at the time it might have felt like a jousting contest almost between 2 different ideologies, but ultimately we were trying to break free of the Earth's orbit, and how incredible is that? But I think more sinister side to it potentially is that it was a dick swinging contest. You know, how big can you build it? How much thrust have you got? You know, who's going to get to the finish quicker? And that want to build the biggest missile obviously had a military aspect to it, and we were cheering for it. We wanted it to happen, and it ties back into this idea of the death drive, you know, kind of chasing these things that will kill us ultimately. And I sometimes worry that with things like our LLMs and the way that we palm off our critical reasoning or our memory to hard drives and to robots, you know, and asking for summaries rather than just reading the things ourselves, or looking at a map, you know, to plan a route, that maybe the destruction's already happened, like the rocket that's already landed. We're not aware of the end, that it's already here.
Yeah.
And that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully put.
What do you think people get right about their bodies? What are people intuitively really good at diagnosing?
Not much. I think people are really good at knowing when something's wrong. So they generally are pretty good in seeking help when they need to. Because if you think about having a minor muscle strain, people don't generally go for physio for it because they expect it to go away within a week or two. But they would know when something big has happened, and they're generally quite good at seeking help.
What's the most common misdiagnosis that you might come across?
I'd have to say nervy pain. So people could have pain that's completely localized. Let's say you have something simple like tennis elbow. And tennis elbow is basically overuse of the extensor muscles in the wrist, fingers as well, like your wrist do this. So let's say someone has that. Let's say that pain happens to go from here all the way down here. And let's say it's a sharp pain and it happens when they try to lift something or they type for a long time. They'll come in and they'll say it feels like nervy pain, or they feel like a nerve is trapped and that it's something that needs to be looked into. Whereas for actual nerve pain, generally, we'd expect more symptoms such as numbness, pins and needles, burning sensation, maybe feeling like there's a cold breeze on the affected body part. We'd expect the distribution of the pain to be in certain nerve pathways. So for example, 3 nerves that go down our arm. If radial nerve, for example, you'd feel pain coming from shoulder up to the upper part of your arm to around where your thumb is. Whereas if you have an ulnar nerve issue, so the funny bone, you'd feel it when you hit your elbow on a table. You'd feel it from here to your pinky. So they go in very specific distributions. Of course, I wouldn't expect the average person to understand them, to know it, because you shouldn't have to. That's why it comes to us. I feel like people tend to catastrophize nerve pain a lot more than if they were just to think that it was just a normal muscle or tendon issue.
Why do you think that is?
I think nerve pain just has a ring to it. It sounds a lot more severe, and it sounds like it's something that is harder to fix, in my opinion.
Can you just look at a person and know what's going on with them, do you think?
Oh, with no context whatsoever.
Ideally, no context.
Let's say someone's just standing and you see their hips slightly hiked up towards one side. So you could be thinking, is it tight on one specific side? Maybe they're trying to compensate for pain. Why do they have their pain? Do they have something in the joint below or above? Or is it actually not an issue if it's not affecting them at all? That's just one thing that they've been born with and they've just been standing that way for their whole life.
So I have never been into sport. I used to hate PE at school. I used to always try and get out of PE because why would I run around a muddy field in hockey boots and a long sleeve t-shirt in the mid of December, freezing cold, playing rugby? No, I just didn't want to do that. So I think PE at school is not what fitness can be. It's just, that's what you have to do to, just one of the subjects at school. But always hated it. And then during COVID, I put on quite a bit of weight. And obviously mood was just like down in the gutter, like most people's probably was, because I still was doing my office job. So I just like log on, sit down for 7 hours, log off, and then not really do much. And I'd like force myself to go for runs. I didn't enjoy it. I was just doing it because I thought that's what I needed to do, because I'd eaten like a whole bag of crisps the night before. So I was like, oh yeah, I need to go and burn off these crisps that I've eaten. Yeah. And looking back, that was so negative. That's such a bad relationship with fitness and diet and everything. It's awful. And that's what I was just like in COVID. So I put on a bit of weight. And then after, I was like, no, I need to do something about it. Because I was feeling so down in myself. And I was like, just blaming it on other factors that it could be. And I was like, actually, no, it's because I'm not happy with myself. So I need to be selfish and actually just put myself first and do something about it. So then I got a personal trainer at Pure Gym. And it was probably the best thing I did, because then I got into fitness. I lost the weight that I wanted to lose. And then I was like, oh, how great would it be if I could do this for other women and make them feel that great about themselves? Because then I got to a point where I was confident in myself. I was enjoying coming to the gym. It wasn't a chore anymore. I'd like look forward to going to the gym. And my eating habits were so much better. I was like actually fueling my body rather than thinking I needed to eat crackers with tomato and cucumber. Honestly, I literally have a picture on my phone and I had 2 Rivita crackers with the tiniest smither of cream cheese, 2 slices of cucumber, 2 slices of tomato, and that would be my lunch. And really, that's ridiculous. It's like 150 calories. Like, what's that giving you, really? But now I know that I can eat carbs. I need carbs in my body. I can have X amount of calories if I'm moving enough for it. And I think now I have a much better relationship with food and fueling my body because of the sort of training I now do. But I think that comes with time and personal growth. And I think I'm now at a point where mentally and physically 100% feeling great, so I can then help other women do the same. But I think you have to be 100% in yourself to be able to help other people, because otherwise I think that reflects in your sessions, because you'll get people that come in that will be struggling with anxiety, or they'll have had depression, or they'll have had, they might have struggled with eating disorders in the past, or had unhealthy relationships with food or fitness. So it's your job to pick them up. So if you aren't 100%, you have to come into that session and tell yourself, I need to be 100% for my clients because they are paying me for a service. And people think it's just personal training. It's not. It's so much more than that. Like, if they come in and they've had a really, can I swear? If they've had a really shitty day, it's your job to pick them up, and it might be that they come in and they're like, I can't do this session. I'm not feeling great. And you're like, okay, give me 12 reps. And they're like, no, can't do it. It's your job to be like, yeah, you can. And you're going to do it because you know that the endorphins that they will get from that session, they will go away and feel amazing. And the amount of clients that are like, I feel so much better for actually coming in. I feel so much better for getting out and getting some steps. And it's like, well, yeah, you will do. But it's our job to keep reminding them of that it doesn't have to be a chore. It will actually make you feel better and it boosts your mood.
I think this is what makes Leah such a great coach as well, because she's relatable, and even to now she probably doesn't realise it as much as she should or could. I remember you said, how did we meet? And I was literally just practicing a cycling class in the back of my best man now, in the back of his class that she was going to participate in, and that's how we sort of met. And then she actually attended one of my sort of high intensity swear functional fitness kind of classes, and she came and she was currently on this diet, this deficit from her coach, and she had no calories left in a day, and she was telling me about it. And she was going to have this serene bar, these tiny little mini serene loaves,
like 90 calories,
89 calories,
like the malt loaf things.
Yeah, little malt loaf things. And she said, I didn't have it because I didn't have the calories for it. And I'm sat there in my head. Again, this is like the bridge between relating and not relating, or women confidence, or different goals. Leah's done it to obviously get in shape. That's what her coach has told her. You've got to be within this calories. And I'm like, that 90 calories would have made you feel less restricted, would have kept you going for the class. You would have worked harder. You would have burnt that 90 calories. You wouldn't have had this toxic idea of food. And instead she's gone home exhausted, not worked her body how she now does. Like, it's amazing seeing how she pushes her body from now to the entire time we've been together, the journey she's been through whilst as a couple. So obviously I can't touch on that too much because I'm a fiance. I can't say take too much of a coach's perspective, but the start point and the end point, it's not the end point, of course. I remember I always say I dragged her to Snowdon when we went to Snowdon together because there's no way Leah, when I met her, would have wanted to hike up Mount Snowdon. And now she's entering powerlifting competitions, high rocks competitions for myself. So it's bonkers to think that she was scared of a serene loaf.
Yeah.
So back then, would she have been that person that could coach someone? No, but she's grown by being uncomfortable.
What have you been reflecting on recently?
I think the big piece is just like being happy in who you are as a person and being the best version of yourself and being excited about your life before you bring someone else into it. I think a big part of like my enjoyment as your mate at the moment is just seeing your enthusiasm for Nottingham and the high rocks and the running and the actual gym as a space has been really nice to see. Like, you're clearly getting the results from it because you're excited about it and you're exciting and interesting to talk to, consequent on the fact that you're enjoying your life. And I think so many people aren't happy with their life and complain about things that they don't do anything about and then expect to bring someone else into that melting pot, and for that person to be excited about them in a way that they're not even excited about themselves. And I think I have been guilty of that. I wasn't excited about my job at the time when I met you. Like, I've just shut my website down at the end of an era with the indie. And that was a big part of my identity, and I need to figure out who I am and how I'm going to be and how I'm going to exist in the world moving forward without putting that pressure to help me figure that out on a partner. Like, I need to do that for myself. So I think it's about self-sufficiency. It's about, can you fill your own cup before you... Like, a partner should be additive. They shouldn't be the contents of the mug. They're like the sweetener, not the whole cup of Joe. I don't know why I said Joe. Like, am I American? No.
Sorry, buddy. What else have you learned?
Bizarre. How bizarre.
Good shoot.
Anyway, so yeah, a partner should be additive. They shouldn't be everything. There are ways to make yourself more interesting. There are spaces you can go to make friends as an adult. I think it's really hard to do, and people understandably are daunted by it, but run clubs are a great example. Book clubs are another great example. There's loads of like free talks and workshops and events. Just go to them. If it interests you, if it's a subject that interests you, go, and you might meet someone. There are apps to make friends. You don't have to use Hinge to find a best friend, but you could, in theory. There's also Bumble BFF. Surround yourself with people that excite you, that you want to spend time with, and I think the relationship is the like final puzzle piece. It's not the first piece that you should be starting with.
I was introduced to the idea of the dreaming when I was in Australia. Have you come across this?
Tell me more. Tell me more.
So the dreaming is the indigenous conception of time as a continuous present. So everything that has happened and will happen is happening now. In the dreaming, we are with our forebears. We are with our grandmothers and grandfathers and our grandkids. And so exactly what you've described is this notion of who you want to be already exists.
Yes.
Whether that's because you see yourself in someone else or because you see yourself in who you're going to be. And maybe an idea that I'm trying to tease out is that you want to be is just you plus action, or you plus different choices. So if you set out on that path, the only difference between you and where you want to be are the steps that you take to get there, if that makes sense.
100%. 100%. I love that, because sometimes you can have what you want, but not the way not the way you thought it was going to happen. You know, it's you might have a plan of how things are going to turn out. I like to focus on the end result. It's like choosing what you want most over what you want at the time. You can have what you want, but it doesn't happen in the way that you thought it would. You know what I mean? It's and I think life has a really wonderful way of surprising you as well. But I really, really love that. I think, especially in quantum physics, they say everything is happening at the same time. I really love that concept. The dreaming. I will look into that.
Your quantum physics, this is the superimposition, isn't it? This is Schrodinger's cat, that every outcome is possible, but when you observe it, you make it happen, sort of thing.
I think as a child, I used to draw pictures of what I might look like in the future. And, it was always bold with a goatee. I don't know why I resonated with that look, but I gotta say, in the childhood depictions that I drew of myself, I was much taller. You can't have it all. But my growth spurt may still be yet to come. I mean, my dad's 6'4". I'm not sure what happened here.
How many times, John, do you reckon you need to be kicked in the head, or to land on your face, or to have whatever it is that life throws at you to understand things in this way, do you think? Is it something that comes naturally to you, or has it come through hard knocks, so to speak?
Certainly comes through hard knocks, and you'll have the same lesson through different people. It's like certainly if you have relationships with a certain type of person, if you haven't learned your lesson from that relationship, you're more than likely gonna fall into a relationship with someone similar. You know what I mean? Until you learn those lessons. So it's like things do repeat themselves until you learn the right lesson. And It's I think relationships is probably the best way to describe that. You probably end up with the same person until you learn. Maybe I should regard these things to be red flags instead of just accepting this for what I've always had. So I think it's very easy to fall into that pattern. And, maybe maybe the problem is how I regard the problem. But I've certainly had a few hard knocks along the way, figuratively as speaking. And I think it's, you know, it's how you shift your mindset as well. It's, when you go in for a job interview, it's like you're desperate to impress someone, but it's also an opportunity to evaluate, is this company right for me, for instance?
Ultimately, just get kind of micro doses of positivity. Just you absorb people's energy, and hopefully they absorb yours. And you realise that we've kind of come together, a group of people, for an hour. We're told that we don't talk to each other anymore. We might have different political views, we might have different religious views, we might have different backgrounds. We've come together in a shared experience. We're doing something which is good for our minds and our bodies. We're doing that together. We're doing it in a shared space. We're respecting that space. We're building reciprocity. We're building something together for the greater good. All of us who are participating in it, and everybody is going to finish that. The vast majority are going to come away and they'll not regret it. They're going to be happy, and you see that as a volunteer. You see it all the way. I love the fact that at Parkrun, no one finishes last, because there's a volunteer who's always a tail walker, who's always going to come last. The emphasis on walking now, on movement, is fantastic. I think a key metric for Parkrun is that they want the average time to be slower every year. That means they're more inclusive as an organisation and more people have been involved. And to me, that is about us modelling something towards the good society. And I don't think there are many opportunities for us to do that in this day and age, in an atomised online world, to actually bring people together in an embodied environment where we have an emphasis on common experience and on building something together. And I think that's really important when we think about fitness, which is so much about the individual and individualism and individual goals. And that's fine, but I think there's also something about harnessing that individual desire, instinct, spirit, motivation within a communal whole as well. You can go to Parkrun and not talk to anybody else and still feel a connection with people. Just like you could go to a rave and do that, or a cinema. It's a communal activity, but it's free, and I think, I get quite evangelical about it, because I think there are so few opportunities for us to do that. So I would definitely recommend to people just to sign up and get involved, just to volunteer at least once.
The two phrases I had in my head as you describing that were Huxley and Hacienda. Because it is that thing of a collective experience of living and breathing the same drops, the highs, the lows. It's embodied. You're choosing to be a part of it, and all hopefully on the same up. And hopefully able to manage the same come down. The Huxley bit, I had a conversation with a research associate at King's College recently, and she's really interested in psychedelics in mental health, but also in naturalistic settings. And she references Huxley in her talk called The Science of Psychedelics. The quote is along the lines of, the drugs occasion the change. So drugs aren't necessary to experience hallucinations or to have these trips or psychedelic experiences. We have the capacity for these already. For people who maybe run with intensity, or run in groups, or who give birth at home, or maybe chant in a forest in a circle together. You can tap into a state that's already in the body. You don't need something exogenous as such. It's the occasion that brings it out of you. And absolutely, the first parkrun, the first half marathon, there was something bordering on spiritual about it. And to have one last kind of house reference to tie it together, if I see a man waving, does that mean that I'm not alone? I remember going up a hill completely by myself on the half marathon, and there was nobody to run with, there was nobody else's breath to hear. It was just my kind of labour, so to speak. And I was struggling, it was a little bit gritty underneath, so grip wasn't great, it was hot, I was sweating, but there was somebody in a purple vest at the top who was making a racket. And I was just like, okay, cool, I've got something to aim for.
Get to that person.
I couldn't say hello when I got there, but she just kept on clapping, said well done, and that was enough to keep on going.
I mean, just as an aside, I think I've got a friend I run with, actually a couple of guys I run with, and we've all decided that ex-ravers are quite a kind of common constituency in running. So we definitely fall into that category. So I think that analogy is very appropriate, Jack. But I'd also be interested to hear a bit about more about that experience for you, because I'm really interested in how, as runners, we can continue to create those moments. And that moment you just described is obviously one that is indelible. It will stay with you. It's almost like your kind of running origin moment, the moment when you kind of clicked and you found that flow and you found that spiritual elevation, if you like, that comes with running. And I sometimes worry that people can lose that. We have goal fixation. We're like, next half marathon or PB, and actually I'm really interested in how we just build that into everyday running. Every day, every run contains something of that, right? So it's not always about the next thing. It's about actually finding ways to be intentional about every single run, that you can create a kind of fabric of moments of euphoria, or that enable that euphoria, and that you're not, and that yes, we can pursue individual goals, and that's really important to create structure and coherence, but also just finding that joy in every run.
No, you're in your country. Yeah, speak Spanish.
And between us, we figured out that I just needed a plug for my laptop so I could do some calls with my clients, and it's all fine.
Yeah.
And we both did it from a position of being apologetic that we weren't speaking.
Yes, yeah, which is amazing. And if you've got both people that are just trying, good. If one person just wants to write you off straight away, then it is what it is. But that's very, very rare here. Everyone always is buzzing that you're speaking the language, and it's been nice.
A classic thing with travel, it's also a lame joke that I'll make with runners, or me and my best mate will always crack on when we see couples running, what they're running away from.
Yeah.
Is travel that for you?
No, it's not. It's not at all, to be fair. It's I don't know if I touched on it a bit at the start, but I was just looking at my setup of my life in the UK. And I'm not going to lie, I was living a great life. I had a good job, I had great mates around me. I was sharing a house with 3 of my best mates in London. Half an hour tube into the office, in the office 3 days a week, going to the gym, playing football, going and watching football, home and away with my family every Saturday, going to the pub, going on holidays. It was an amazing life. But 9 to 5 was and I know you're so lucky if you wake out of bed excited to do what you do, and very few people have that. And I liked what I did. I had a great team, I had great customers, it was brilliant, but I wasn't this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. And just spoke to my boss and was like, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And he was like, professionally, I'm gutted, but from a personal perspective, I'm so happy you're doing this. I did it when I was roughly your age. And that's pretty much the feedback I got from everyone that I told at work. And I just wanted to make sure I left in the right way. So I gave him plenty of time to find my replacements, so that they could know who my replacement was whilst I was still there, so we could do proper handovers and all stuff like that. So I think that maybe if one day I did want to go back into it, I would have good references and people that would have my back if I wanted to go back into the company I was working for, or into if they've moved on, and I could maybe knock on the door kind of thing. But I just want to see where social media goes. It might go nowhere, that's fine. It might go somewhere, great. Just see what happens. But I just needed time in my life, I think, to have a bit of a pause, because I've just did primary school, secondary school, straight to uni. Both summers at uni I did internships and worked, and then as soon as I finished uni I was straight into a job. So I never did the gap year at 18 or the gap year at 21 or lived abroad. I just kind of needed to go, okay, what do I want to do with this thing? We only got one chance of it, so what is it that I want to do? I can always go back to corporate, but I can't always go and travel and see the world when your knees aren't fucked, and you can go up hikes and do all that stuff. So that was basically, I don't think I'm running from anything. Maybe I'll figure it out in a month, so I'll be fuck, that's what I was running from. Yeah. I don't think it's that, but it was more just I was looking at if there's a time to do it, it's now, basically.
There are 3 things from that. The first, I can only apologise if people heard the search for the lost cat Benito.
yeah. I think the mics will be fine.
We should be alright.
Yeah.
If you heard that, it was a man
it wasn't us.
with a cat on his back looking for Benito. Hopefully he finds him. The second is, I think what's really nice to hear from you is that it's not an abnegation of your responsibilities. It's that you don't have them.
Yeah.
It's actually, I have this period to go out and have a crack at something that is really interesting and meaningful to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And people will just go all the way through and hope that they're in a good position, shape, fitness, financially, physically, whatever, as you say, to then go and enjoy retirement.
Yes.
But I think something that's motivated me to be out in Mexico while I've still got clients in the UK is, have you come across Tim Ferriss, an American entrepreneur who has had loads of different businesses, but I think his first bestseller book was called The 4 Hour Week.
I think
which you
I've
might have
seen.
come
Yeah,
across.
I think I haven't read it, but I think I've seen this.
Yeah.
Or the idea of a 4-hour week. Yeah.
And it's problematic in some ways, but he was the first to lay out this kind of lifestyle of remote work and outsourcing what you don't need to do, and ultimately getting down to 4 hours what might have taken you 40 in a week.
Yeah.
Great. And he talks about booking things to look forward to, and also making sure that they're substantial periods of time away from work.
Yeah.
So he calls them mini retirements.
Yeah.
And the idea is that he'll book a month's trip 6 months ahead of time. So he's got the excitement for 6 months of this 1 month trip. And then he's got 1 month intensive in a place. Mini retirements, enjoying things while you're fresh, kind of as you're describing.
Yeah.
But not just doing the 2 weeks bit, like actually giving yourself enough time to get into a place. And there are so many people who will never get to see the world because of their commitment to work. I'm maybe speaking from a position of not knowing what my thing is that I want yet.
Okay.
I don't know if I found it.
Yeah.
Do you know what you want, do you think?
Oh, that's a huge question. I think I know like the lifestyle I want, but I'm figuring out like the vehicle that enables me to get that lifestyle. And I think I had like a lifestyle that I liked in London, but the bit where you have to give up 9 hours of your day, 5 days a week, I wasn't particularly pleased about. So I've always said to my family and my friends that I never ever cared about being like a multi-gazillionaire or whatever. I always just wanted to have enough money so that any decision that you wanted to make, a swaying factor wasn't the price. It would just be like, say for example, I always use this example, I don't even know if it's a good example, but like taking one of my children to like an event that they're participating in, and like on the way back there's a load of traffic and you know it's going to take you ages to get home, but you see a hotel, it's just like, okay, we'll just park up in the night for the hotel, we'll go out for dinner, we'll drive home the next day. And it's just like, I've always just wanted an amount, I just want to live like a lifestyle that makes my life easy, and unfortunately a lot of the times is that you need money to do that. Estamos grabando. Lo siento. And I've just always wanted that. I wanted to earn an amount of money where it doesn't play a part in swaying the outcome of the decision, basically. And you don't need £1 bazillion to do that. But I want to. Sorry if I'm waffling, but I want to achieve that in my own way. I don't want to have to do it by working for someone else.
From New York City to Rotherham, San Francisco to Sheffield, we have been international in this run of episodes, and I want to keep it going. From beaches in southern Mexico to kitchens in South London. If there are some ideas that you want to hear about or people that you want to hear from, let me know. Maybe make the introduction and we'll get it done. It's been so much fun to get to this point, and I can't wait to see where fitness and thinking and the 6 pillars go to next. As ever, much love and thank yous for your support. I'll see yous in number 51. All right.